Don't think, don't drink, easy does it, first things first. All these helpful hints are supposed to kill my thirst.
The views expressed on the following broadcasts do not necessarily reflect those of KHLT, Take 12 Radio, or our affiliates. The opinions on this show should not be considered as medical, psychological, or professional advice and are those of the host, co-host, and guest. Take 12 Radio and KHLT Recovery Broadcasting are not affiliated with any particular 12-step fellowship.
Well, what is it?
This is the place.
That's right.
Have a laugh and save your soul.
Mm-hmm.
This is the place. Don't have to pledge allegiance or stand in line. No ticket to buy, no paper to sign. You found it. This is the place.
Welcome, my friends, to another episode of the Take 12 Recovery Radio Show, coming to you from beautiful Albany, Oregon, worldwide. Dave Fleming is here.
What's up, people?
Anthony is here.
A jolly good morning to you.
And the topic, those sayings on the wall.
Just don't drink.
Say what?
Walk if you're ready. This is the place.
Uh-oh.
This is the place where I wear no mask. I am who I am, not part of the past. Get a little taste of saving grace. Hook up
Welcome
to the human race. Come on in.
Come on in.
This is the place.
That's right, my friends. This is the place. You've tuned into the Take 12 Recovery Radio Show, a broadcast of KHLT Recovery Broadcasting, the original and world's oldest recovery talk and recovery music radio program and podcast, coming to you on all major podcasting platforms. Also available at take12radio.com, our Facebook page, Take 12 Radio. I am your host, the Monty Man, and this week the topic is Platitudes of Recovery. Those dang sayings on the wall. What do they... Ooh, what was that? Ooh, that was a promo getting ready to chime in. A little early. Just like an alcoholic, isn't it?
Cecil trying to jump in there.
Trying to jump in there.
Yeah, too much calf.
Anyway, so we'll our producer will move that back. Yep, I got the thumbs up. See? There you go. Anywho's it. We're going to be talking about Platitudes of Recovery and those sayings on the wall. And also with us today to talk about this interesting topic. In fact, this topic was suggested by him, our Southern California rep for Take 12 Recovery Radio, Mr. Roger McDermott. Hey, Roger.
Hello, everybody. Happy and a wonderful day to you.
Yes, it's certainly, as you sound chipper today.
I am chipper.
Good.
What's the point of not being chipper?
That's right. So, what do you think? Why did you want to talk about this? You're the one that said, "Hey, maybe we got to talk about that sometime." What's so interesting about all these platitudes?
When I first walked into the rooms, you see all these sayings on the wall. You kind of have no idea what they mean. You know, for instance, first things first. Well, nobody really told me what that meant and where it came from. They give you an explanation. You know, It's like, well, you know, recovery is first, not drinking is first, and so on and so forth. But little did I know that it referred to Matthew 6:33. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these other things shall be added unto you.
Yeah, and it's interesting how many of these sayings do line up with our actually came from biblical principles, just as the steps did. So I don't know how fast I can do this, but let me just hit on a few. There's much more. Dave's got some as well. But the most common ones, easy does it, first things first, live and let live, but for the grace of God, think, one day at a time, let go and let God. Keep it simple, stupid, act as if this too shall pass. Expect miracles. I can't, he can. I think I'll let him. If it works, if it work it. Keep coming back. Stick with the winners. Keep right side. Sobriety is a journey, not a destination. Faith without works is dead. Pour me another drink. To thine own self be true. And hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of others. Particularly, though, first things first, live and let live, but for the grace of God, think, and easy does it. These are the ones that are most typically, at least in Alcoholics Anonymous, the ones that are in Old English lettering font, somewhere on the walls in the meetings.
Typically, yes.
Typically, yeah. We have them up in the office part of the studio with the one think turned upside down. Roger, do you know about that story?
I do not. Think turned upside down. No.
Yeah,
share that
yeah.
with me.
So as it is much of the time, these sayings didn't necessarily come from Alcoholics Anonymous. Some of the sayings that we love so much that seem to fit with the program or the written literature of AA, many of them do not, and actually can be harmful, but we use them anyway because we're not educated properly. And we'll talk about that a little bit too. But many of these did not originate from Alcoholics Anonymous. Think is one such slogan. It was actually a marketing term used by IBM. And the story goes that there was a gentleman who was a member of AA that worked for IBM, and he was stuffing envelopes with this marketing slogan that said, think. And it was going out to the paychecks of all the IBM employees. And he got to thinking, hey, that's kind of cool. And he sent one off to some GSR, and as things go, it just kind of took off. And AA meetings all over the place in his area adapted it, and there you go. The reason it's turned upside down is Clarence Snyder. He kind of got a burr up his bonnet, realizing that our best thinking is what screwed us up. And so knowing that we don't stay sober by our intellect, but by a dependence on a power greater than ourselves, he decided to turn the think upside down on its head to make the point that, no, your thinking, it's got to change. So your current thinking is not a good thing to depend on. And that's why in some meetings, particularly back in the Akron area in New York and that like that, you'll find it turned upside down. Have you ever seen it turned upside down?
I have. Anthony? I didn't know why, though.
Yeah.
But, yeah, actually, I've been in a few meetings where it was turned upside down, and I made the mistake of going, oh, that's somebody put that up, and I got scolded for trying to turn it back. Now I know why, though. And nobody explained to me why either.
Right.
Did you ask? No, I got scolded. I wasn't going to ask any more questions.
Yeah. Did you know about that, Dave? Had you heard that?
I think that you've told that story before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So interesting stuff. Live easy, but think first. If you use the first letter of each one of those, live and let live, easy does it, but for the grace of God, think, and first things first. Live easy and think first, is the acronym, I guess. That's what that's called, right? An acronym?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm not so sure how healthy that is. I don't know. So we'll talk about that. But there's lots of slogans, and some of them were ones that Bill W. adapted from the Oxford group. Some were just cutesy little sayings that people brought into the rooms. Others came from Al-anon. Many believe that most of the at least the four minus think actually originated from Al-anon. At least some of them. So a lot of different opinions and a lot of different dependencies on the sayings.
Right.
Now I would venture to say that if there were no sayings on the wall, that wouldn't be good. I think that's a good thing, especially if you're new and you're sitting there and somebody gave you a cup of coffee and you're twiddling your thumbs and there's nothing to look at, right? But some of these things have been with us for decades, and what's one of the most popular ones? It certainly doesn't come from Alcoholics Anonymous, but one day at a time, right? In fact, that's not even in the literature, but that is something that has been adapted in there that has to do with Matthew, the book of Matthew, and don't worry about tomorrow. Today has enough problems of its own. Tomorrow will take care of itself. So live one day at a time. Yeah. So there's another biblical principle. Do you have a favorite one, Roger?
I think that I just want to harken back to Clarence Schneider.
Yeah.
That was the first time I saw Think. First of all, he's a hero of mine in the program. But the first time I saw Think, Think, Think on the wall, it really puzzled me because I had enough sobriety and clarity for that moment that I realized my thinking was completely messed up.
Yeah.
When I stopped drinking and realized that I was left with all of my problems, my thinking was the issue. And so I always wrestled with think, think, think. Like, why would I do that when that's my issue? That's my problem. Mm-hmm. So it was always interesting. But I hadn't heard that story, so I like that.
Yeah.
Do I have a favorite one?
Yeah.
I don't know that I do. I suppose Live and Let Live is one of mine at the top of the list. But for the grace of God, I think that's my favorite.
Yeah. Dave, you got a favorite one?
Probably just one day at a time.
One day at a time. Anthony?
I do not have a favorite one. I actually kind of get, at first, and when I first got into the program, those sayings agitated the snot out of me. I was like, yeah, it's easy for you to say that. You've got some time. I'm sitting here and I'm shaking and
but now they're burned into your brain.
Now I say them and I'm like, and as I'm saying them, I'm like, oh, this person probably hates hearing this. But they kind of get ingrained,
They do. In fact, our closing song on this show is from Michael Purrington and the Messengers, and it's called "Those Things on the Wall." And he talks about, whatever. Yeah, these are supposed to keep me sober, right? But then later he sees the value in them.
Right.
Are there some? Well, first of all, Dave, share some of the ones that you had. You brought in some paperwork.
Well, there's some of the ones you covered. Like you said, there's hundreds. Stick with the winners. Sobriety is a journey, not a destination. If God seems far away, who moved? Turn it over. We're only as sick as our secrets. Be part of the solution, not the problem. 1 hour at a time, 1 day at a time. Wonderful things happen. More will be revealed. 1 drink is too many, 1,000 is never enough. Let's see here. Just looking down the list, see if there's some that we didn't.
Do you think, Dave? Let me ask you. Do you think that sometimes these slogans can be wheeled around like a saber? Somebody will say something in a meeting, and somebody that thinks they know it all and they got it all together will just comment back to them in a sarcastic tone. Well, more will be revealed.
Yeah, I think that's just one of those, what's the word? Not distraction, but it gets people to think, but the person that's saying is typically like, it's easier just to rattle off a saying than to help someone out. I've noticed that sometimes that happens a lot of the time with seems like newcomers. But
Yeah.
there tends to be, you can tell who's working the program and not working the program, or not working it very well, if that's what they're doing, rattling off these things.
Yeah,
Does
Anthony?
that make any sense?
Yeah, it does.
I just one just popped into my head. Maybe you said it already, but that I hear not super often, but when I hear it, I'm like, yeah, don't quit before the miracle happens.
Yeah.
Right.
Because for me it was a miracle when that light finally, when I was like, this is where I need to be, not when I just kept showing up because everybody told me to, but I showed up because I wanted to.
Yeah, that was very helpful for me in the beginning, because I would get discouraged, and then that one would come, don't quit 5 minutes before the miracle or whatever. Okay, I can hold. I'll hold on.
I kept waiting for that miracle, and then it happened.
Yeah,
and it was,
it's like, okay, I'll go to one more meeting.
Yep.
I'll listen to one more share, but I'm not gonna walk out.
Right.
Well, I think that whole thing with the miracle is that we have this expectation that it's supposed to be this big, bright light, or some major thing that happens that changes us, where sometimes it's just little things that come along the way.
But I think what the miracle was for me was I was willing to do what I was told at first, but when I became willing to do it because I knew, I had this inside, I knew that this was what was going to help me.
Yeah.
Because it had already helped me. After a while I was like, wait, I haven't drank and haven't used any substance to change how I feel for like, oh my, it's been 2 weeks now. It's been a month. It's been, 60 days. And that to me, that wasn't my norm. And so that to me was a miracle, and the fact that I was becoming willing on my own without being told to, without being, like, I don't know, when I willingly went to meetings and I sought out, recovery on my own, that's when that was a miracle for me. So
there's one that's probably not on this list, but it's changing your have to get to.
Changing your have to
get to.
Right.
To
instead
get
of
to.
have to get
Oh,
go to a meeting,
yeah.
I get to go to a meeting instead of having to help someone. I get to help someone.
And that's a direct evidence that your thinking's changing.
Right.
Yeah. That's really good. So here's one I'd never heard before. I'd heard a version of this, but not this. The road to sobriety is a simple journey for confused people with a complicated disease.
I don't think I've ever.
Yeah, I've heard something similar,
like a simple program for complicated people, or something like that.
I've heard it's a simple program, but it's not easy.
Right.
But that's just kind of a short, condensed, microwavable version.
I think that's what happens from the telephone game, right? You hear a saying, or you repeat it,
and then it changes.
And then it changes, or you forget how it's worded, and then you just make it up. That's close enough.
Roger, do you have any that you particularly do not like?
So the ones that are, I think is the one I detest the most.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like I said, when I came to the realization that my thinking was 100% my problem.
Right.
Because every action, every word is born in thought. And when I realized that, I would, the think never made sense to me, even from the beginning. When I first met and I asked the guy to be my sponsor, he asked me, are you willing to go to any lengths to stay sober? And are you teachable? And then he said, I want you to spend some time in the doctor's opinion. And so when I was able to digest what Silkworth was telling us about an entire complete psychic change and so on and so forth, and then you read in the book that our problem is a spiritual malady, so insidious that it tells us we don't have one, and we don't straighten out emotionally, psychologically, physically, or any way until the spiritual malady is addressed. Those things started to really change my concept of day-to-day behavior, and so the other thing is that I learned what my sponsor would say to me every single day was, stay out of the way. Stay out. That is like singed into my mind. And so one moment at a time, one day at a time, stay out of the way. Those were kind of things that were my foundational truths about how to live a day in sobriety. And I stopped trying to set up expectations,
Yeah.
Like one of the sayings I heard, and not on the wall, but expectations are resentments in training. I just love that one. Because, alcoholics, addicts, we have a tendency to set ourselves up to fail.
Yeah.
By thinking forward and moving God out of the way. And, I'm going to do this and this, and I expect this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think the think thing has always been problematic for me from the first time I saw it on a wall.
Okay. Dave, do you have one particular one that just is like nails on a chalkboard? I mean, maybe it was a good one, but it just hit you wrong at one point.
The only thing that comes to mind, and it's not necessarily the slogan, it's just some of the words, right?
Right.
Keep it simple, stupid. I changed it to keep it simple, silly, just because
the negative,
the connotation
of stupid,
it's more derogatory, it can cause more trauma, right?
Sure.
In our own mind, or so. That's kind of where my head goes. But other than that, I don't really have anyone that I despise.
Anthony, what about you?
All of them at one point or another.
At one point.
Well, let me clarify that. It depends on who. It depends on who's delivering it, and or how it's delivered and when.
Yeah.
Like if I share something in a meeting, like I'm struggling, and if my mind's not right or I'm not willing to hear feedback, and somebody says one of those catchy little phrases that's supposed to help us, and I take it wrong, I'll be like, "Oh yeah,
yeah.
Let me tell you something." And then I have to shut up and just listen.
Right.
Throughout
from then on, and that yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah. Like, don't you know who I am?
Right.
So one of the comeback sayings that I tend to be like nails on a chalkboard for me is when somebody interrupts somebody with, "That's an outside issue." When I hear that, 99.9% of the time, it actually is not an outside issue. But the person doesn't like what the other person's saying. So they'll spout that out, right? Or they'll say, "Where's that in the big book?" When the person's, all they're doing is expressing their own personal experience, right? And it's like, that's what I call big book thumping. Now, big book teaching or big book sharing is different than big book thumping. Big book thumping is using the big book as a tool to bash somebody over the head with inappropriately, taking things out of context. Right. That's thumping.
Can't you wait till after the
meeting? Yeah, but then I may have to get personal with the person. I'm not protected by the group, right? One that I absolutely, it makes my skin crawl is, shut up, sit down, take the cotton out of your mouth, out of your ears, and shove it in your mouth. You have nothing to say.
That one touches a nerve in me. I was at one of my very first meetings. I heard that. Probably was the right time to. It maybe could have been put a little more delicately, but I was not. I wasn't sober at all. I showed up to that meeting and I was brought there, and a few people said that. Shut up! You don't have anything we want. You are to listen. Shut up! Sit down.
Yeah.
And I'm like.
Yeah, welcome to the friendliest meeting in town.
I'm like, all right, so I can go hang out with all the fiends and be treated a little bit better than
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, when I came in, you could have crushed me with a word.
Right. And
I didn't need that.
And love and tolerance is our code, right? So,
out of the same mouth.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, come on now.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. That one drives me absolutely up the wall. Sit down, shut up, take the cotton out. Yeah, that does not work for me. That really incites some anger with me, because that's not who we are, how we're supposed to act. If the newcomer is the most important person in the room and we're telling them that is not being kind or tolerant or welcoming or anything. No. We're not being an attraction, that's for sure. And that's not even a promotion. I mean, that's just, that is silliness. And yeah, the other thing, like you said, Monty, I totally agree. And I hadn't thought about that, but where's that in the big book? That's an outside issue. That's all of that is the same person that said, sit down, shut up, and take the cotton out of your
mouth. Yeah, it is.
Right. But it's the same, those are the same people that would have that sort of attitude. And I want nothing to do with that.
Yeah. I don't even like it when somebody, somebody will remark after somebody's share, well, some are sicker than others. That's sarcastic. That's putting down what the person shared. Aggressive. But here's one that is kind of one of those kind of camouflage digs. And that's when after somebody shares, somebody else shares and says, well, for me, and then they go on to discuss whatever it is, right? And are subtly correcting what the other person said by saying, well, in my case, but for me, when it's really that their intent really isn't to personalize it, it's to make a point you're wrong. And you can tell, you can see the body language, you can watch it. But that well, for me, you might as well make a saying and stick that on the wall.
Here's one, and I think I've already heard it, but like after I've shared, sometimes if whatever I say,
right,
keep coming back, like,
yeah, someday you'll get it. When you wise up, right?
Like, yeah.
Works if you work it.
Yeah.
Because obviously you're not.
And that's the way I feel, is like they're implying that I'm not.
Right.
And it's like,
yeah. Or some newcomer will just be talking about how their life's going down, down to hell in a handbasket because they can't pay all their bills and their wife or their husband's left them and all the stuff that we say we shouldn't share in meetings that maybe as some people that have been there a while shouldn't be because we know better. We're supposed to be sharing the message. But the new guy doesn't know that.
This too shall pass.
Yeah, this too shall pass. Keep coming back. Well, we'll love you until you can love yourself. Now shut up. That kind of thing. So one of my favorite things to read and want to tear off the wall at the same time is the framed poster, The Promises. I think that should be removed from every meeting. And at the very least, needs to be reworded, and in some meetings it is, properly.
Do tell.
The 9th step promises. Because people will sit, when I first came in, I heard the promises. I was in a meeting, and they made it a habit to read the promises at the end of the meeting. But they didn't explain where those promises came from. But they started out with, the first part of that, which talks about, being thorough about what we've just done. But it doesn't. If you just say that, you don't know what they're talking about. But you skip over that and you hear the promises. This will happen, this will happen, this will happen. All this stuff will happen, which, by the way, we get some of our slogans from. You will intuitively know how to handle situations that used to baffle you. I've seen that as a poster on the wall. So the deal of it is, lots of people, including myself, I was wondering why in the heck, after going to so many meetings and drinking so much of this horrible coffee, haven't these promises come true? Well, because they're not the promises for walking in the door. They're the promises for making amends in the 9th step. And they come true as a result of making the amends. They don't come true for any other reason. And, you may scratch the surface of some of them, but for the most part, those are 9th step promises. And by the way, every step has promises. So I wish they would reword that title and just put the 9-step promises, because people are walking out of there thinking this is all going to happen just by going to meetings. And
Right.
yeah, Roger.
Good point.
Yeah, no, not so much. Yeah, meeting makers don't make it. That's another one. It's like, you know what? Meeting makers make it. Not just because you go to meetings. That slogan, that's another one that gets under my skin.
Meeting makers make
because
it.
Meeting makers make it. So the message is all you got to do is go to meetings, or
Right.
just keep coming back, or just don't drink in between meetings and keep coming back.
Right.
No, the program is the steps in the book, and that's what changes lives. Meeting makers make it I get it, but if you don't put that in context, the program is not in the meeting. The program is outside the doors of the meeting when we go out, apply the steps to life when it shows up. And the application of the steps gives us experience, which creates, strength and hope. We come back to the meeting to tell people, the newcomers, how well it works when we work the steps outside the rooms. So it's not about meeting makers make it. It's about taking the steps outside the meeting and apply it when no one's watching. No one's going to give you an attaboy. And you and God walk through life.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah. So very true. And a lot of these sayings are they're well intended. And
yes.
and when they're put together with the rest of the program, they work really well. Because I wouldn't have known about the steps. I wouldn't have known there was even a recovery fellowship if I hadn't gone to a meeting. So there's value in the meeting. It's also where I can give away what's been given to me, and it's also where I can listen to see where I can be a maximum service to those who need help. But if you leave it there, that's just like saying, well, one day at a time. You can't just leave that there.
No.
You know, call your sponsor.
I think it's a result of the our fast food society.
Oh, instant gratification.
Right. And nobody, it's like, it's the quicker the better. And it's like, what time is it? Is it, got to get done in an hour. We're always worried about the time and focusing on the time. But yet when we were in our addiction, we didn't really pay attention to that. And we spent 24/7 in our addiction.
Yeah.
We should spend it, you could trade off the time, which is, you can't do 24/7 necessarily in the beginning, but you're spend an hour or two a day working on your recovery is a fair trade-off.
Sure it is.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think some of us that have been in recovery for a period of time, we need to get back to remembering that when we're trying to help somebody.
What'd you say, Roger?
I was going to say that, whenever I get the privilege of sharing at a meeting or, speaking to a meeting or something like that, I like to relate a promise to each step. And so I list out the 12 steps, and then I have a promise directly related to each one of the steps. And people come up to me and they go, wow, I've never heard that.
Right.
And I don't remember who put it in that format for me, but it made a lot of sense. Like step one, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, our lives had become a managed promise. We were going to know a new freedom and a new happiness,
Yeah.
And when you put it in direct relationship to the step, it has great power, and it makes total sense. And so that made a lot of sense to me. So the slogans sometimes are challenging at best, and sometimes they can be a very negative impact on the newcomer.
If God seems far away, who moved? I don't like this one. Because sometimes you can be doing everything right and it still feels like God is far away. It's not necessarily because you moved. It just is because that's life. And sometimes that can be used as something to shame somebody. Well, if you're feeling that way, you did something wrong. Well, maybe you did, maybe you didn't, but who am I to tell you that?
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
When I hear a newcomer share something like that, the first thing that I try to do is relate to them and agree with them, and then come alongside them and explain, how that had happened in my life, and what did I do, as contrary action or whatever, or take which step was I taking to get a solution, as opposed to fingering them out and go, well, you know, if you had done this, it wouldn't have happened that way.
Right.
It's the worst thing you can say to someone who's still in their addiction or what have you. It's like, come alongside of them, put your arm around them and tell them, you know, we love you and we're here to help you. And yeah, I relate to everything you said. I get it. Let me tell you what happened to me.
Exactly. I do love But for the Grace of God. I do love Live and Let Live. That has probably been the hardest one for me to apply, because I love to let people know where I think they're wrong.
Me too. Yeah, that's why we like each other so much, Monty.
That's right. You know, it's a difficult job, but somebody has to do it, right?
Here's how I did it.
Yeah. So for me, but I will tell you that this whole thing with the Biden and Trump battles and the border and Afghanistan and COVID and vaccines and all that stuff, what I've noticed, I mean, I'm just applying my behavior in response to all of that through the eyes of applying and implementing some of the principles in our recovery programs is that, if anything, it has actually it started to make me angry. I started to want to post all sorts of responses, but it has actually, in my case, caused me to kind of sit back and fight the temptation to respond in a way that wasn't helpful just because I wanted to make my point. I have actually pulled back from that, and I got to tell you, it's brought me peace. I watch people on the right fighting people on the left and all these memes posted and stuff, and I'm like, gads, people, go have a cup of coffee and put your feet up. I mean, and so the live and let live thing, not that it's accepting certain things. No. There's certain things that are wrong and immoral and unjust, and they need to be called out. But do I call them out to the point where I've thrown myself into a tizzy and my ulcer's acting up and I can't get sleep and all that stuff? And that's where Live and Let Live has been very beneficial to me, because truth be known, God's going to pull the covers off eventually anyway, and those that are out in left field are going to remain out in left field, and I'm not going to have to do anything. So Live and Let Live has helped me in this arena of the way the world is in right now, without approving of any of that stuff, but just not letting it affect me like it would have normally. So I don't know. There you go with that one. You know, Easy Does It is one of my favorites to teach people, because the guys that I work with so often in recovery, they want to fix everything right now.
Yesterday.
Yeah, they want to get back with their wife right now. They want to fix that financial issue right now. Got to have peace with my family right now. And because I just got my license back and I've been sober for 30 days, they should all respond to me as if, you know, I'm this award-winning track star.
Right.
You know, well, Easy does it, brother. You need to calm down, slow down a little bit. You got a long way to go, and they may have even longer to go. So, Easy does it.
About progress, not perfection.
Well, I like that one in the context that it's written. It's spiritual progress, not spiritual perfection.
Right.
But I do. I love that, and not as something to use as an excuse, but as a legitimate reason not to beat myself up if I haven't arrived yet. Right.
Yep.
Or other people.
Yeah, I remember using that one in the beginning. There's one that I see here that I don't think I've ever heard before. At least I don't remember.
Yeah.
Sobriety lost its priority.
Ooh. Sobriety lost its priority. Yeah, because that is in reference to something became more of a focus than your recovery.
Right. That's one that that I haven't heard.
So sobriety could lose its recovery, and you could be in a slip and not even have drank yet.
Right.
Right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Or how about nothing changes if
Nothing changes.
Oh my gosh.
90
guys,
meetings in 90
that
days.
was drilled in my head by my sponsors. If nothing changes, nothing changes.
Right.
Right. I don't like 90 meetings in 90 days. You like it though, right?
Well, the I like it in the context of the newcomer, and they're trying to figure out
True.
what do I do, where do I go, how do I get started, what's this meeting stuff about, and what meetings do I go to. I've kind of adapted it a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Because I tell people that it's not the ones that I work with, it's not necessarily as important to go to 90 meetings in 90 days, but to do something every day for your recovery. So it might be, you might go to 4 meetings a week, and then the other 3 days you're doing something to help someone else. You're doing service work.
Right.
Right.
So you're doing something every day.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So you're.
Go ahead.
Go ahead,
Sorry,
Roger.
I was just going to say that was put in context for me. Here's the question that was asked of Roger. How often did you drink?
Right.
Yeah.
And then the response was, well, do as many meetings as often as you drank. And I went, okay. Well, that's pretty clear, right? It doesn't matter if it's 90-day meetings in 90 days. For sure, I drank every day almost. Maybe there were a few days.
Most of us would have to take our sleeping bag and just camp out there.
Right.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
the local Al-anon
And then the
club.
other thing was when I read Dr. Bob's Nightmare, where he said at the end of that, if you put 50% of the energy that you were used to getting another drink into this program, it will never fail you.
Amen. Right. Yep.
That hit me between the eyes. So how often did you drink? Put that much. If you put 50% of that energy into the program, the steps, being of service, this program will never fail you. And that's always been a cornerstone for me.
Right.
And when I tell newcomers, that's what I translate it that way. It's not what I think. It's not what I think you should do. Here's what Dr. Bob said, and put it in context to how much you used to drink and use.
Anthony, what were you going to say?
So one that I've had a hard time wrapping my head around is take what you need and leave the rest.
Oh,
right?
I hate that.
Because if and I'm not saying that I've done this well or even close to perfection, but if I didn't work the steps, all of them, I wouldn't be here, right?
Right.
And I think that's giving permission. Take what feels good.
I understand the heart behind it.
I do too, but if we tell a newcomer that, we don't know where their mind's at, and we don't know how they're going to hear that, and we need to put things into context. Right?
I don't like it either. I do understand the heart behind it.
Right, I get it.
It's to kind of give them a calm. Okay, listen, don't worry about all that right now. Just take what you need right now. Leave the rest, but keep coming back. I mean, but you're right. You're right, because I don't know what I need.
Right.
Right. So I can't even make that
don't.
judgment call yet. There was a gentleman who was a good friend of mine, actually, who used to say, make a list on one side, put everything you thought you knew about God, your old ideas, and then on the other side, everything you want God to be. And then take what you think you need and leave the rest of it. And I'm like, well, that's convenient. Now I can make God into whatever I want him to be, and then I become the creator, and now we're back to the same problem I had in the beginning. I thought I knew it all, so that didn't work well for me either. The 90 meetings tonight, let me go back to that for a minute, though. Let me take back what I said. It's not that I don't like that one. I don't like the history of it. And it's not even that. I don't like that we've made it a 12-step program slogan when that's not where it came from. It actually came from not treatment. It came from a judge,
right,
who declared to somebody that he had court ordered to a meeting, I want you to go to 90 meetings in 90 days. Right. That came from a judge. It did not come from AA. The problem I have with that, it again is the focus on just doing meetings. There's so much more. I would be go to 90 meetings in 90 days, get a sponsor, work the steps, bring me back your paperwork that showed me you worked the steps.
Right.
I mean, and
it goes back to context, right?
It does.
Because I always try to, because when I say those things, I go to, what's the context to this person?
But
right?
you and I can do that. A newcomer doesn't know how to do that.
Right.
That's the problem.
But that's what I'm saying is if I'm with a newcomer, or even if I'm at a meeting and I hear somebody else say that, I will, and they don't talk about the context, I will chime in and, share the context of that. Right. Because it's a hard thing for people that are new in recovery, that, especially if you go to a meeting and it's like a horrible meeting and you're like, well, that was a bust. I guess I'm not going to do that again.
Roger, were you going to say something?
No, I'm just in total agreement with everything you guys are saying. The important thing with all of these slogans, when they're thrown out or they're pinned up on a wall, is to put them in proper context.
Yes.
The explanation and the context brings clarity to what the slogan means, so that people don't just run off and put it in their own thinking and define it as they will. So, I think context is huge.
Okay, I know, Roger, you got to take off here in just a minute. We're going to take a really quick break, come back. Let Roger go, but I don't want to do that until we talk about what I think is one of the solutions to put these things into proper context. So don't go away. Check this out.
Proudly sponsoring Take 12 Recovery Radio, Exact Nature products are made with exactitude, a combination of can-do attitude and commitment to providing premium quality products to help you in your sober journey. All Exact Nature products are independently tested for quality and purity. Learn more at exactnature.com. As a Take 12 Recovery Radio listener, use the code TAKE12 to receive a 20% discount on your order.
All right, welcome back. Hey, I just want to add to that. Exact Nature is a CBD product, non-THC. So with the controversy that goes around CBD products today, listen, there's no THC in Exact Nature. You're not going to get high, but you are going to get to feeling better. I have been using their product Z's, which is a sleep aid. I was using a very expensive sleep aid from a all health or vitamin health company that actually a relative of mine sells. And it was working really well. This works 100 times better.
Wow.
It is just, I am telling you, I am getting sleep I never got before. My breathing has changed. I have sleep apnea. My wife has always told me I toss and turn all night. I'm not tossing and turning. I cannot tell you how helpful this stuff has been to me. And sleeping, by the way, getting proper sleep is absolutely vital to a person's health. Particularly if they've been a substance abuser and they're now in recovery.
Yep.
I mean,
sure.
it is absolutely vital. So, folks, and by the way, if you use the discount code TAKE12, TAKE, the number 12, 12, that helps us. That helps further this broadcast, and so you're not just helping you're actually helping us stay on the air. So please try them out at exactnature.com. All right. So it's vitally important that we keep these slogans in context, that people know where they came from, that we use. There's so many of them that are so good, but that we teach them properly. And I think the solution to that is an area in our 12-step programs that we need to get back on track with, and that is proper sponsorship.
For sure.
They say that over 60% of people that attend 12-step meetings do not have anything more other than a phone number, and they don't use it. That's a sad state of affairs. And your sponsor needs to be somebody, in my humble opinion, who has had a spiritual awakening as a result of those 12 steps. not somebody that's on step 3 and you're on step 1. Somebody that has actually done the work and is giving it away and is keeping things in context and is using, if they're in NA, they're using the basic text of NA. If they're in AA, they're using the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. If they're in Celebrate Recovery, they're using the CR booklets. I mean, whatever fellowship you're in, they should be applying and implementing the literature that's in that fellowship. What do you think, Roger?
No, I totally agree. I think when I met you, Monty, it wasn't long after that Dick B edited that book of using Clarence Schneider's sponsees that were still alive in terms of what he did in Cleveland and where they had the greatest success. I used that workbook with all of my sponsees.
Wow.
Because it is the way it was done in 39 and 40 and basically until Clarence passed away in the 80s. And like I said, he's one of my heroes. So absolutely.
What was the name of that again?
It's Our Faith Legacy. Monty can get you a copy of it, or I can certainly tell you about it. Monty, do you have that information?
Yeah, simply go to dickb.com. It lists all of his books there. Probably the world's foremost authority on the history of Alcoholics Anonymous ever. Almost 40 books that he has published on the topic. Just amazing stuff. Both Roger and I knew him personally when he was living, and Roger and I met at one of his seminars. Which did you speak at that, Roger?
I didn't speak. I don't believe I did, but that was where you and I met, and I followed Dick until the day he died.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That
was I had the pleasure of speaking there for a short period behind the podium and share it with him and his son Ken. But just an amazing guy. And he was a theologian too. And
absolutely.
He practiced law, didn't he?
Yeah, he graduated from Cal undergrad.
Yeah.
And then Stanford Law School.
Yeah. And a lot of people didn't like Dick because he kept everything in context.
Absolutely, 100%. One of his lines that I stole was, "I am a reporter of the truth. I no longer have opinions, and I don't write editorials. I am a reporter of the truth." Yeah. And I love that. I love that.
Absolutely. Roger, do you need to run?
I do in the next 4 or 5 minutes.
Okay, we got about 4 or 5 minutes anyway. Anthony, any closing thoughts on maybe sponsors are needed to clear some of this stuff up?
I know that in some of the meetings that I've been in my time in recovery, that is what I've noticed to be lacking. Probably one of the biggest things is strong sponsorship.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who will be like, "Oh, I'll be your sponsor," and then they're sponsor-sponsee relationships, but nobody's working the steps. Nobody's actively in the book.
Yeah.
And if they, and then nobody's sponsoring as well, you know. And so, but I also think that there's a fine line too. Like, I think that if one or two people are sponsoring a lot of people, then it kind of, to me, things get watered down. If somebody's spread too thin. Right. And I don't know.
Then you're not being fair to the people you're sponsoring.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like, so know your limits, but also don't be afraid to, like, if you've gone through the steps. Yeah. It would be selfish to not share that.
Why wouldn't you want to share that?
Yeah. Right. Like, because and if you don't want to share it, then maybe you missed something along the steps.
Yeah, absolutely true. Dave, what do you think? We need more sponsors?
I think so. We got to get back to to the basics, and like we were just talking about, be reporters of the truth, right? And guide people. I think there's been, I know there's been a lack of good sponsors right?
Yeah.
It's kind of goes on. What I see is either there's a huge lack of sponsors, or you get that few like what Anthony was saying about that sponsor a whole bunch of people. Well, if somebody's got 12 sponsees, then I'm going to question. There's a red flag right there.
Sure.
So I don't know. I think who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe we should start a class.
Maybe. Roger, thank you so much for joining us today, my friend.
My pleasure. It was a blessing. Thank you. God bless you guys. And I look forward to our next opportunity to get together and share our experience, strength, and hope.
You betcha. You betcha. Mr. Roger McDermott from Southern California, Huntington Beach to be exact, with us. He's been representing Take 12 Recovery Radio in Southern California for some time now, and we really do appreciate him. Any closing thoughts? Dave, you first.
I just, glad to be here, and I thank you, Roger, for taking time to share your experience, strength, and hope. And have a great day.
Anthony, closing thoughts.
I got nothing. I'm just glad to be here.
Thanks,
Roger.
We're glad you're here and not out there.
Right.
Right. All right. Our closing song is by recovery recording artist, comedic recovery recording artist, Mr. Michael Purrington. We played this song before, and I think it's very apropos. It's entitled Sayings on the Wall. Here's Michael.
Don't think, don't drink, easy does it, first things first. All these helpful hints are supposed to kill my thirst. Since I got sober, I lost what was left of my mind. Coming to these meetings and reading these stupid signs. Nothing is so bad that a drink won't make it worse. They never told me sobriety was a blessing and a curse. One day at a time, I'm praying not to fall, going crazy, reading sayings on the wall. We can do together what I cannot do alone. If that's the best that you can do, I should have stayed at home. This too shall pass if I keep it simple. I can stand the pain, but these wonderful cliches are making mush out of my brain. Nothing is so bad that a drink won't make it worse. They never told me sobriety was a blessing and a curse. One day at a time, I'm praying not to fall, going crazy, reading sayings on the wall. Now, I can't say those signs contain intellectual wealth, but they're starting to make sense, even to a smart guy like myself. They're digging deep down to where my stinking thinking lurks. But I still get pissed off when they say, keep coming back, it works. Nothing is so bad that a drink won't make it worse. They never told me sobriety was a blessing and a curse. One day at a time, I'm praying not to fall, going crazy, reading sayings on the wall. One day at a
Mr. Michael Purrington and the Messengers. Hey, listen, if you've ever considered taking part in a partnership with Take 12 Recovery Radio, we'd like to talk with you. Please give us a call here, 541-971-6445, or email us at take12radio@comcast.net. That's TAKE, the number 12, radio@comcast.net. And we'll have a discussion about how you can become a Take 12 Recovery Radio partner. Remember, folks, no one gets paid here. This is a labor of love, but it does take funds to maintain an office, a sound booth, and the equipment, and, of course, our internet fees to broadcast. Now in our 17th year of bringing you the best in recovery talk journalism and recovery music. All right. Until our next broadcast, this is the Monty Man, along with the Take 12 Recovery Radio family, celebrating September National Recovery Month and wishing God's perfect serenity for you.
This has been a broadcast of KHLT Recovery Broadcasting.
This is the place.
Kitty, 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 kitty. Meow, meow, meow.
Woof, woof.